Welcome back in. John Kurtz here on Open for Business, talking all things Holy War this week with BYU and Utah coming up. Really excited to get out to Provo for it and to get some perspective on this rivalry. Welcome in Dick Harmon from the Deseret News, longtime columnist there, has been there and covered this rivalry for over 4 decades. So not many people know it as well as you do, Dick. I appreciate you taking some time for me. Where are you at on this BYU team right now? How surprised are you that they're sitting here with a true freshman quarterback at 6-0 heading into this game?
I'm very surprised. I thought Jake Retlef would be in the driver's seat, just driving this thing down the freeway and having these ups and downs. But to have a freshman come in like this, I've never seen anything like it. He's had a few mistakes, but his poise on the field has been remarkable. He's been able to execute. He's calm. He doesn't get rattled very easy, even after making mistakes. And I'm just totally impressed with what he's been able to do. And I got to credit Aaron Roderick, the offensive coordinator. He's kind of set him up. The schedule's kind of set him up. It's not been too tough. They've been able to ease him in and game plan around him, and that's certainly been a huge part of being 6-0.
What do you think the ceiling is for this team?
That's a good question. I would say the ceiling depends on LJ Martin. When BYU is able to run the football, and right now I think he's 6th or 7th in the country in rushing, ranks up there high in yards after contact. If they're able to do that, they're able to play action. If they're able to play action, then it makes it a lot easier for Bear to hit some very good and experienced receivers that have really performed well for him. If they don't run the ball, then I think that gives defenses and they're going to face from here on out. They're going to face some outstanding defenses. I think they did it against Arizona, but if they can't run the ball, then they're going to be in serious trouble. That's the way that they will fail and lose.
I mean, that's the crazy part of this, right? Like, I think going into the season, it didn't look like the schedule was all that tough relative to the rest of the league. But now, I mean, you look at the finishing stretch run here. I mean, it's basically the top half of the league standings. Like, how equipped do you think this team is to go from what they've seen so far this year to handling that down the backstretch?
Well, a lot of it depends on injuries. If you get your frontline players healthy and keep them healthy after this game, and then you go on and play on the road at I think it's Iowa State coming up, and then you go see Texas Tech, and if they get injured at certain positions, then it will be a tough thing for them. We've seen what's happened to them when they've had a rash of injuries. Right. All of a sudden, you become very vulnerable, become fairly average in some areas. So I think injuries would play a huge part. That's the main thing I'll be watching this Saturday to see who comes out, in one piece and healthy. They can't afford to lose some players.
Yeah, right. And well, all eyes will be on Jack Kelly, certainly, to see what his health looks like on Saturday. I'm curious about the historical context of this game, because I saw that Scott Mitchell, who's a Utah radio analyst, said this is the biggest holy war ever. And he cited the context of, hey, both teams being in the same power conference with a conference championship berth, potentially something they would be playing for here. You've seen so many of these. Is that a fair statement, or where does this one rank?
I just wrote a piece. I don't know if it's published yet. I had like 7 or 8 things of why this is one of the more important things, rivalry games, probably in at least recent history. And right up at the top of that is that what you mentioned. Also, both for the first time since 2009, you have 2 ranked teams. Utah, of course, ranked 23rd. BYU ranked 15th.
Yep.
And you've got that ranking, which has not happened since the Max Hall overtime win over Utah in LaVell Edwards Stadium back in 2009. You've got the fact that Kyle Whittingham is one of the top coaches in the country, certainly in the conference. He was maybe going to retire last year, but after 5-7, he decided to come back. This is the reason he came back, is that he wanted to, cement his legacy. And part of his legacy is beating BYU 9 straight times. This is what Kyle does. And he does it for a myriad of things, but he's back. He's here. He's going to do that. Then you have Kalani Sitake, who just got a contract extension. These 2 coaches have known each other. They've coached together. And he's on his way. He's starting to get Big 12 money. He's starting to get NIL help. He's starting to build something. BYU's come out of the wilderness and independence, and all of a sudden they have a chance going 17-2 over the last, 19 games. So there's that coaching thing. The other thing is, it's remarkable, John, that there are so many coaches and former players for the other side now coaching for the other side. It's just remarkable. I mean, I think BYU's got 6 BYU coaches, former player, and Utah's got 5. You could go down the list. The offensive coordinator for Utah, of course, was a BYU quarterback. You got Aaron Roderick, who played at BYU, but was the offensive coordinator for I think about 10 years for Utah. You go down the whole line. You got Gary Anderson, who is the coach at Wisconsin and Oregon State and Utah State twice, and he's a consultant on BYU's team now. That's remarkable. You can go down the list. I have never seen this much inbred crossover in the history, and I've been covering this for 48, 49 years professionally. It's never happened like that. There's a lot of other factors that just make this so unique. I think the eyeballs, John, of course, you're coming to town, you're being here. There's a lot of people coming to see this game, to see what it's all about. I don't know that there's been that much entrance nationally in the games before. There has been some because of its history. But yeah, this week there will be a lot of eyeballs and a lot of things at stake. Certainly, maybe a trip to Arlington. The rankings count. No, it's big time.
Do you get the feel then that this will be Kyle Whittingham's last time to be in this rivalry?
He's going to turn 66 in a couple of months. I think that he would probably like to spend more time with his grandchildren and kind of go off that way, but that's not in his blood. Kyle Whittingham, I've known him since he played with my brother at Provo High School and Tempe High School, and he's one of the most competitive people I've ever met. For him to get out and to go another way almost goes against his grain. But there comes a time when you want to do it when you got your health. I could see if he wins this game, has a pretty good run down the line, I could see maybe he steps away. The competitive thing, if he loses this, I don't think he would want to go out, losing this game and then losing a couple of others. I think that would stir him and get his blood boiling, and he might come back again. But on the other hand, you've already kind of named your coach in waiting with Morgan Scally. Is he going to be there forever waiting and not knowing? I've seen that happen at golf courses with professionals when a guy's been named the guy that's going to be coming up and being the next guy. We've seen it at other coaching things. How long will Morgan Scally be, happy to do that? He's certainly one of the best defensive coordinators in the country.
What did you make of, and I've had some people tell me, I guess this is something that has happened before. I'm sure you can provide the context on that. But what did you make of Kyle at his press conference earlier this week, not wanting to talk about Bear Bachmeier, not saying the specific name BYU? Like what is going on there?
I think it boils down to last year's game. The way that game ended left a sour taste in the mouth of Kyle and his athletic director, who did something that I have never seen: come to a press conference, get right up in front of Kyle before he goes on and just blast the league, blast the officiating, the call, and everything. I think that loss has set this whole situation up, and that's why I think Utah's going to bring a tremendous amount of emotion into that. I think Kyle grinds. He grinds and he grinds and he grinds, and this is Kyle. I don't know if you remember back in, I think it was 2007, Utah went to Wyoming, and they had a 43-point lead in the third quarter, and Kyle called for an onside kick, and Wyoming's coach John Glenn flipped him off, and it ended up that Joe Glenn had to apologize for that. But it was amazing. And the reason he did that is because Joe Glenn told the student body the week of the game, I guarantee that we're going to beat Utah. And that got back to Kyle. And he just grinded on that. That's the way he is. So I could see that there's so much things going on in his mind, so much intensity, so many things that he wants to make so much perfect that he didn't want to speak about BYU's players to give anybody anything and twist his words in any way. Because there's been a lot of that going on in this rivalry, where somebody will say something the week of, and coaches are always saying to the players, don't say a thing, shut up, don't give them any bulletin board. And I think that he was probably thinking in that moment, I'm not going to talk about them because I don't want it to come back on what I'm trying to do.
That's really interesting. That's a good take on that. How complex is the history between Kyle Whittingham and BYU? I mean, obviously I know the basics, right? He played there, brother played there, right? And now obviously has been the coach at Utah, legendary coach there for so long. How would you describe just like how complex that relationship is between the two?
Well, I think it goes back to his father, Fred Whittingham, who was an NFL football player and coach with the Rams and the Oakland Raiders. And he was at BYU and has some of the best defenses that BYU ever had was under Fred Whittingham. Kyle is taken after his father. He played at BYU. Kyle did, and his brother, two brothers actually. We had one brother who's now the tight ends coach, Fred Whittingham, who was a fullback with Ty Detmer when he won the Heisman that year. And so the Whittinghams have been a part of BYU for a very long, long time. Fred left to go to the NFL. I think he wanted to come back, and for whatever reason, they stuck with who they had as defensive coordinator. And I think that was the parting of the ways with the Whittingham family. And then there's been incidences that have happened over and over again, necessarily during the games and stuff that were said. An incident with his son and his wife coming off the field, LaBella season back, I think it was 2009. They kind of spurred that 9-game winning streak. So yeah, there's a lot of feelings there. Kyle is a good person. He's a good man, and he is passionate about whatever he does. If he was on the BYU sidelines, he would be exactly the same. But because he's with the Utes, he's being Kyle, which is extremely competitive, extremely locked in, do or die. He's a coach that loves the theme of we got our backs to the wall, that we're the underdogs. We have to prove something. This brings out the best in Kyle, and it's usually brought out the best in his teams.
How about just the rivalry in general, kind of the tone or the tenor of the rivalry right now? Is it more intense? Is it hotter than it's been over the years? Is it about the same? Like, how would you describe it as someone who's just come into it the last couple of years? Obviously, it seems very intense right now. How has that changed over the years?
I think it's always been really intense. There's been so many moments. You've had times where the Utah coaches back in the days of Mark Wilson and a line of All-America quarterbacks, coaches just claiming that BYU was holding all the time and that they were running up the score on them. Utah wasn't good back then. A lot of hard feelings that way. There's religion that comes into this rivalry. Yeah. There's a lot of members of the faith, the LDS faith, that go to the University of Utah, and they have a resentment about the church having a school like BYU. You have a lot of BYU fans that just look down their nose at Utah and their fans, and they sense that, so it comes back. There was a time, I think, when BYU was independent that Utah looked for ways, and maybe this was under Kyle's suggestion, we don't play. So they signed Michigan instead of BYU. They signed to play Florida instead of BYU. And then it came back together, and then it turned into what it was the last couple of years, ending with that ugly scene at the end of that game last year. I think because they're in the same conference now, that all of that is getting jacked up again. The blood is flowing. The emotions and the passion is back. And it's maybe even fueled anymore because there's just so much at stake in this game. And it's a cluster, John. There is so much hatred between these two fan bases. You cannot believe it. It's on their tongue almost every day, every week. And this week it'll be there almost every hour and by the minute.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, how do you see this game playing out? I do think I peeked at your prediction, so I have kind of an idea here. But what do you think are going to be the key things to look out for?
I think anybody that says they know what's going to happen is a fool, because this game usually goes down to one play, and it usually goes right down to the end. I do think that the University of Utah will be fired up. I think they'll come at BYU. I think they have more with their backs to the wall. They can't afford to lose this game and have any part of Arlington. So I think that part of it is on Utah's side. I do think they're extremely talented. Their offense is explosive. Dampier can make plays with the legs, and he's got a shorter passing game. On the other side, I think BYU's balanced attack is something that will really provide a big hurdle for Utah's defense. Because Bear's the runner, LJ's the runner. You got Bear that's passing pretty good at 64%. He can throw deeper more accurately than Dampier. I think it's going to be a defensive game. I think the difference in the game, and it has been almost every year, has been turnovers. Whoever wins that turnover battle will win. I'm thinking in my prediction, which is close. I mean, who knows? I think I had it 21-24. That BYU will probably win the turnover battle because it's going to be a lot of pressure on Utah in an atmosphere where BYU has really excelled. You've been there before. At night, the Vampire Cougars, they come out at night at home, and they do find a lot of energy, and I think they'll probably make one or two more plays. But I could totally sell you on Utah winning this game because of the situation, because of Kyle Whittingham, because of his track record at getting turnovers for BYU. I was at a bowl game in Las Vegas between these two teams. I think BYU threw the ball, the first 5 passes, I think 2 or 3 of them were intercepted. One of them a pick six, maybe 2 of them pick six. That's been the tradition here.
Yeah.
That long stretch, Utah, I think, had a 3-1 margin in turnover edge on BYU during that 9 win streak. So turnovers, John. It's all about turnovers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, last thing, and I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about this because it's just as an outside observer, I noticed this about BYU right now. I mean, we can't ignore it, right? I mean, the preseason All Big 12 basketball stuff just came out today. Obviously, there's a ton of excitement there with AJ DeBonsta and the team last year, everything that's going on with BYU basketball. The football team is on this run you just mentioned, 17-2 in the last 19 games. I mean, has there been a moment in BYU's history where like things have been at this peak? Is this kind of the apex? I know obviously there's a national championship in football in 1984, but the whole totality of everything and the NIL support that's coming in and all of that, like how do you describe where everything's at for the athletic department right now?
I think it probably is at the pinnacle because of NIL. BYU has always been a cheapskate school. They don't pay their coaches. They don't, it's a 1-year contract for all of their athletic coaches. And that's changed. That's different now. And I think because of that, we've seen what's happened with AJ DeBonsa in basketball and Kevin Young. And then with BYU going 11-2 last year and then having a chance right now to go 7-0. I think this is probably the apex. The only thing I would compare that with is back in 1984 and right before that when Danny Ainge, I think it was 80, 81, when they made it to the Elite Eight. They had a roster filled of NFL talent or NBA talent. And that was kind of the heyday of BYU athletics. We may say that this might be entering that kind of a period again, but certainly it's when you talk NIL, you talk the money, you talk the resources, you talk Big 12 paychecks now, and fully getting a full check. This is probably at least on the threshold of being one of the best times in BYU history. If you look at football recruiting for the class of 2026, and they're ranked 21st, right ahead of Texas Tech. Who's ever going to believe that? Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to believe that. AJ DeBonsa, nobody would ever believe that. Not in a million years.
Yeah. Hey, good times in Provo for sure. Dick, I really appreciate your perspective. Looking forward to getting out there and seeing you at the game, and love reading your work at the Deseret News. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. You do a great job. You got a lot of followers. People love your stuff. Keep up the good work.
Yeah.